My name is Sterling Sykes, and
I'm Spencer Sykes. We are Collected, and we are from Boulder, Colorado. Pretty early on, we've always had a pretty musical family. Our parents would always sing to us and encourage us to learn more about music daily. Never were much of instrumentalists, but I really dove deep into music theory throughout high school and college, and so that's one of my biggest passions when it comes to music, for sure. And then, obviously, the songwriting part of it as well.
absolutely. I would say he has a lot more true educational training when it comes to music than I do. Obviously, we're brothers, so growing up in the same family with the same music background. Coming out into Denver, we entered a production school out there called KMG, and that's where I believe I really started excelling as a musician. Always loved music, grew up singing in choirs, playing some instruments here or there, but never really took it serious, never really had a desire to pursue it as a career option until I really kind of got out into Colorado in the past 2 to 3 years. I would say that my biggest influences in music probably come from a ridiculous variety of genres and styles. One of my favorite genres is actually country music, which throws people for a loop. So that being said, like one of my favorite country bands would be a Zac Brown band. I just absolutely love how ridiculous they are at standing on a stage and like performing together as a group. Other than them, John Mayer is also a huge influence of ours. Just funny because I know we do EDM, but two guys who are definitely not from that community. Within the EDM community, I would say probably a guy like an Millennium. A guy like Virtual Riot is incredible to me. What he's able to do is mind-blowing. So I'd say probably those four are some of my biggest, for sure.
Yeah. Hit the nail on the head with the variety. I love blues. I love classical music. I'd say, Claude Debussy, Beethoven, his Fourth Symphony was an inspiration to me. Duke Ellington is a big inspiration. Quincy Adams is another big one. But then
Absolutely.
John Mayer, that's one that we both share. That's a huge love for us. And then I listen to a lot of hip hop. I would say I've got a big influence by that as well. Love J. Cole. Definitely one of my favorites. I'd say as it goes to EDM, Illenium. I know you didn't mention Illenium. He's a big influence for us. San Holo. Let's see, Nightmare, Slander. I could go on forever, but
Absolutely.
I just think being able to listen to dubstep and then the next song I listen to is some piano ballad, I just think that gives me a different perspective on the music that I create.
We did a St. Patrick's Day show where we opened for a guy under the name of Jay Phelps, who is a guy who's been a firepower artist for years, and he's just super loved in the dubstep community. That show was like a packed house that night. The crowd was going crazy, and we were second to last for direct support for him. So like the crowd we had was one of the most packed all night. That was definitely like my favorite show we've ever played up to this point.
I'd have to agree with you. But also, we threw a show back when we lived in Indiana 2 years ago, and that was kind of the first show that we ever did. And that was kind of a big one for us, and it kind of showed us that we could do what we really wanted to do. It was just some small club venue in Indianapolis. We marketed it on Facebook and Instagram, thanks to a buddy of ours that's a genius in that. And we got nearly 200 people out there, and it was one of the best shows we've had up to this point, and I think that was a big show for us.
Absolutely, yeah. Big accomplishment, showing ourselves at least like what we could achieve if we were able to push ourselves.
Weirdly enough, there's studio desks. I'm just one that I love a clean space, and it just nothing allows me to be more creative than to have a clean and happy environment. And so those studio desks were crazy. I don't know if I'd ever be able to afford one, but
Absolutely. I wish I was a lot better at guitar, so I'll lay that down first, but I nerd out on guitars for sure. And the guitar section at this place is something that, like, unless you have any type of understanding about guitars, you just could not appreciate. The amount of, like, boutique guitars that you can find at NAMM that, I mean, some of these guitars are guitars from the 30s, from the 40s, that you can literally just pick up and play, like, right there on the spot. And that's something that, like, you just can't take for granted. Something that, like, no normal person could ever afford those guitars in their life. And it's just cool to be able to have that opportunity, for sure.
it's a good question. Ooh. I don't know. You got an answer for this one? I'm going to have to give it another 10 seconds.
You know what? Actually, I got to learn a lot about L Acoustics while I was here this weekend. And their systems are incredible. So I think that might be the one that I go for, honestly. Their sound systems specifically, their PAs.
Probably like a modular synth. I don't have a specific one, but there's just so many different variations of sounds that you can get from that. Doesn't matter the genre. Doesn't matter what type of music you're trying to go for. It's purely an experimental process, and I like that. That kind of describes me as a person.
Definitely. Right now, we have been working on building out a bunch of songs, actually. We've been in the studio like crazy. We've kind of taken a step back from DJing and tried to really focus on building a repertoire of songs that we can start being able to push ourselves to play more shows and travel a little bit while not having to worry about producing all the time, you know, and having that catalog of tracks that we could release while we're traveling. So I think right now our biggest push is just to have as many songs in our back pocket that are unreleased as we can.
Yeah, and to go off of that, I think working with other artists as well is something that we're pushing for a lot. Just getting, you know, better at creating something out of the norm. Something that you wouldn't necessarily think of right off the bat. Yeah, I think it helps a lot in the creative process to create outside of your own interests and maybe collab with somebody and meet in the middle.
Absolutely. I think one thing we've actually mentioned about wanting to do this year specifically a lot more is collaboration. So I think you put that pretty well. You can find us on Instagram at collectedcllctd_music. We're on Facebook. You can catch us on SoundCloud, Spotify, and Apple Music as well. So
yep. Spotify and Apple Music and SoundCloud, we would just be Collected, CLLCTD.
Well, thank you for having us out.
Yeah,
absolutely.
absolutely.